3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 11 of...
Dudes Up Kung Fu.
All right. See, I got that one right, too, you son of a bitch. How you doing?
Hey, I didn't even say anything this time, and I still get the son of a bitch? What's up with that?
I was practicing. I've been practicing for like the last 20 minutes. I'm like, all right, Season 3, Episode 11. Season 3, Episode 11. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up.
That means that we only have one more episode, and then we're actually done with this season. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it really is.
Can you believe it? It's been 3 seasons already?
That's amazing. Who thought we keep on getting renewed like this?
That's right. I know. Every time we're up for contract renegotiation, it's always very tense. You know what I mean? Whether they're going to re-sign us, whether
I demanded a new guitar pick, and I got one.
Wow. Because we asked for everything. This is it's important. Well, and also I think we hinted a little bit at it in the last episode that we have a lot of new things for season 4 that we have planned, and updating the format of the podcast a little bit, and doing a bunch of new things to kind of deliver more exciting content for our followers out there. So I'm looking really forward to that, and I think that's going to be pretty incredible. How was your week, by the way?
Oh yeah, not bad. Like I said, my big thing, other than martial arts, is aside from my family and job and stuff, is guitar. And my guitar playing is coming along. I'm learning new stuff, and I just dig like in the martial arts. Like one day you can do something and you just couldn't do it yesterday. I'm
sure.
There's like fucking just stupid like scales. I'm just like playing a scale, and I could never play it before, and now I can just play it. And I'm like, how'd that happen? And,
so when are you going to play something for us on the podcast?
You know what? I'm not.
You should like theme song to, I don't know, one of the Bruce Lee films or whatever on guitar, and then just play it like one of the Enter the Dragon, like the Lalo Schifrin songs, which are pretty groovy. Just learn like Enter the Dragon theme on the guitar. That'd be totally badass.
If anybody wants to hear me play guitar badly, on my YouTube channel, the same YouTube channel we're doing on this, actually, you can just look for some videos. I have videos of me doing Hotel California, Take It Easy, things like that.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that. Wow, I gotta get caught up on all things Sean that are out there. I'm totally
I will
in the dark
send you a link, because you and I are personal friends, or at least we pretend to be on this podcast. So I will send you a link, but I know you won't watch it, but at least I'll send it to you.
I'll totally watch. Yeah, people don't realize we're kind of like Siskel and Ebert. We don't get along at all outside of this podcast.
Right, and you're the fat one.
Yeah, our whole friendship here is just a big sham for ratings. So last week's podcast was very interesting, where we discussed the whole Chinese MMA guy versus the Tai Chi, and there was a lot of interesting comments on that. Even on my I don't know if it was my City Wing Chun page or my Facebook page, somebody had commented like, "Why don't you go fight that Chinese MMA guy?" And I just liked the comment. I didn't answer it. I liked it or whatever, because, of course, you never know with those kind of comments whether the person's just kind of being tongue in cheek and making a joke, or whether that person is serious, because you have no idea what the, what kind of the maturity level is of the people who just follow you randomly on social media. And I think it's interesting because, well, first of all, if it was a joke, that's pretty damn funny. Second of all, if it wasn't, I still think it's kind of strange because, well, after last week's episode, I think I'm kind of ambivalent on the whole situation. I mean, it was actually like we discussed a personal issue between the MMA guy and the Tai Chi guy, more than him trying to call out Chinese martial arts as this kind of monolithic thing. And second of all, I mean, I think that it might not be a bad thing for Chinese martial arts in general. So I thought the comment was kind of funny. What's interesting, after we did our podcast, because as many of our listeners probably know, I write a regular column now for Wing Chun Illustrated magazine called Kung Fu Genius. And it's just basically me talking about cultural things. I mean, I've only done one so far. I just submitted the second one, and I wrote it about this Chinese MMA thing. So I recapped a little bit about what we discussed in the podcast, but I went a little bit more into the line of the bashing the whole Shaolin myth a little bit, because there are unfortunately a number of Wing Chun people, modern Wing Chun people, who still subscribe to this pretty ridiculous fairy tale, and they kind of conflate movie fiction with stories and history and this, phony northern Shaolin temple that you can visit in Henan in China, and where Wing Chun came from. So I do pretty thorough investigation into that too. So I was pretty happy with it. And our podcast is basically the reason why I had that idea to write that. So
I'm looking forward to it. As you know, I read Wing Chun Illustrated magazine. I think I've said it several times. I think it's the best martial arts magazine, especially when it comes to Chinese martial arts that I've ever read. I love it. And one of my life's goals. Are you choking over there? I hope.
Yeah. Well, for those who nobody would know. I didn't say it yet. Right before this podcast, I had a pretty brutal cardio workout, and I'm also suffering from allergies. That was not a very good combination before the podcast. So if I'm coughing or hacking up a lung, I apologize.
So one of my life's goals is I want to have an article in that magazine one day. Sure. And but I love that. I love Wing Chun Illustrated magazine. It's just top shelf, man. It's just top shelf. And you being in it makes it that much better because you're a fucking great writer, dude.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I think, it's also, like you said, it's kind of the best magazine on Chinese martial arts, although it's specifically Wing Chun. But even if you look at, like, Inside Kung Fu Inside Kung Fu magazine doesn't exist anymore. But if you look at it for, like, the last 10 years, there was hardly that many substantial articles about Kung Fu in that magazine. It was all a mix, and there would even be articles of a lot of other martial arts. And not that I have a problem with that.
Right.
But I don't mind reading about jiu-jitsu and karate and those things when I'm reading Black Belt. But when I'm reading Inside Kung Fu, I wanted to read about Kung Fu, right? And it seemed that in its kind of final years, in its final throes, it lost that, and that perhaps is part of its demise at the end. So.
And although maybe somewhat off topic, do you remember the martial arts magazine? You may not be old enough to remember this magazine called Kick magazine.
Yeah, Kick. It wasn't as widespread as like Inside Kung Fu or Black Belt, but I do remember it.
It had this awesome monthly column in it, monthly feature, where it would do like 5 styles against a roundhouse kick.
Oh,
and
really?
next month it would be like 5 styles against a reverse punch and 5 styles against a rear naked choke. And they would have like a Shotokan karate guy, a Taekwondo guy, a Kung Fu guy, a Jeet Kune. Dan Inosanto was in it every month.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it was awesome. I used to like devour that. I used to love that every month. I was like, and literally, I remember as a kid cutting out that section of the magazine to save it.
Wow. That's really great. You know, it's kind of unfortunate because it seems that the kind of heyday of print media in terms of martial art magazines and the modern influx of like MMA and kind of the modern martial arts scene, they just did not align. Because like if you look at martial art magazines nowadays, I mean, Black Belt magazine is still out there. It's still really good. My very good friend, Dr. Mark Cheng, is one of the editors, and he writes for them regularly. But it's not quite the same like it was 20, 30 years ago. They were a lot thicker back then.
Sure.
And if you and I basically grew up on martial art magazines. I'm kind of a child of the 80s, and I didn't like to, I wasn't into team sports. I was into martial arts, and I would buy every month. I would buy Inside Kung Fu, Black Belt magazine, and then whatever other third magazine might be around at that time. And I would just devour those things when I was a kid. It was and I would read about styles. I remember reading about the Gracies in the 80s in those I had no idea what that was, but I would read about it,
Sure.
And in like the old Inside Kung Fu's, and I have them all in storage now in boxes. I have I have hundreds of issues of these old magazines. But they had really in-depth articles about different styles and how they worked and how they functioned, and multi-part interviews with famous sifus and senseis and whatever. And now they're all like paper thin. Most of them are just kind of advertising books and videos and so on and so forth. And it would be really great, given all the information that's out there on martial arts now and with jiu-jitsu and all, and even more stuff we know about Wing Chun, if we still had magazines like we did back in the day that would now report on the things that were coming out now. And I think Wing Chun Illustrated is probably the closest thing we have to that.
And you remember they always had those same advertisements every month, and
yes.
The Asian World of Martial Arts always had the back cover, and
yep, that's right.
It was just and the best for me was, I don't know if you remember, there was an advertisement, Secrets of Invisible Kicks by Bill Shaw.
I remember that, and then there was also Speedman too.
Right. Well, Bill Shaw, turns out, is a Steve Golden student for like 35 years.
No kidding.
Absolutely true. And I remember the first time I'm like, just chatting with Steve one day, and I talk about, oh, look at this guy here, Bill Shaw. Wait, Steve, it has an endorsement by you. And he goes, yeah, Sean, he's been training, at the time, he's been training with me like 27 years now. I'm like,
wow.
Holy shit, you know?
That's funny. Yeah, you could always rely, they had like, and it didn't matter if it was Black Belt, Inside Kung Fu, or whatever third magazine, Inside Karate, whatever. They were like, always, it was like a third and fourth magazine they would kind of rotate out every now and again. But it was always the same ads, the Asian World ads, the Century ads.
Right.
The ad for BLT in Chinatown, especially in the Kung Fu magazines. And yeah, I really miss that. That kind of reminds me of my childhood. And sometimes I'll pick up those old magazines and read them. They're just really, really fascinating. And I really kind of miss that time when print media was still king. Of course, it's cool we can get everything online, but there's just something about having a magazine in your hand, you know?
There's you know who Stan Lee is, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Stan Lee, they asked Stan Lee once about comic books. What he thought about digital comic books. And he said, comic books are much like women's breasts. He likes to look at them online, but there's nothing like holding one in your hand.
Yes, exactly. Right.
I thought that was awesome coming from like a 95-year-old man.
Can I tell you something very weird that happened to me today?
You touched a woman's breast.
No, that'll never happen. Right. I've been married now for 1 million years.
Right, exactly.
My life is over. So this morning, I get a phone call from my good friend Bay Logan. Bay Logan is a Hong Kong film producer and Hong Kong film expert, and one of my close friends, and really very, very interesting guy. He calls me, and I have to admit, I might have been on the toilet when he called me. All right, so I, I'm on my phone. He calls me. I'm like, "Hey, Bay, how are you doing?" And he tells me, and he has a British accent, but I'm not going to do the British accent because that's not my shtick. He goes, "Alex, I'm here with Steven Seagal Sensei, and I was telling him that you are, not only an expert at Wing Chun, but you're kind of an expert at all things about Wing Chun, and you know a lot about the history and this, that, and the other thing." And then he kind of holds the phone to Steven Seagal, and Steven Seagal's like, "Hello, Alex, how are you doing?" And I'm like, you have to realize I'm totally caught off guard. I have no idea. He didn't tell me he was hanging out with Steven Seagal in Thailand, right? And he just called me, right? And I'm like, "Oh, hello, greetings from New York." Like, I just didn't know what to say because I was feeling blindsided, right? And so, and then Bay gets back on the phone, and Bay's like, well, Seagal Sensei was in Kazakhstan 2 years ago, and he saw a Wing Chun demonstration from a Sifu who is from Hong Kong. And he said that guy was very skillful, and Steven Seagal was very impressed. And apparently, from the conversation with that very brief conversation with Bay this morning, I got the impression that Steven Seagal really likes Wing Chun. He actually thinks Wing Chun is really interesting, and he has respect for the guys that he believes have good skill in Wing Chun.
I'm going to do Wing Chun in spite of that.
So he took a photo with this Sifu who gave a demonstration. Gave some awesome demonstration, right? A Sifu from Hong Kong. But he lost the photo, and he doesn't remember the guy's name. So Bay calls me. He's like, "Do you know who that might have been?"
Oh, my God.
Yeah, because this is, and of course, one of my friends, Sifu Donald Mack, he was also on the cover of Wing Chun Illustrated in the last issue, I think. He teaches in Hong Kong, but I know that he has a school in Kazakhstan. So I was like, well, maybe it was Donald Mack. And they looked at the photo. They're like, "No, it's not him." And I'm like, "Was it maybe Kong Chi Kung?" And I showed them, but no, it's not him. And I'm like, well, those are the only guys who seem to have some kind of schools or had taught seminars there. I really don't know. And then we eventually, Bay figured out who it was. And then it was actually one of Wong Sun Leung's students who just came to Kazakhstan to do a demo, but didn't have a school there. But apparently this guy impressed the hell out of Steven Seagal. So anyway, then at the end of the phone call, I was like, "All right, well, great talking to you." And then I hung up, and I'm like, I just talked to Steven Seagal while I was on the toilet. It was extremely bizarre. And it is, again, one of those moments in my life where I go like, wow, I have a very strange life and job indeed. Like, this is just like, this is just Thursday for me, It's like
That's
kind of
awesome.
ridiculous. So anyway, I thought it was kind of funny.
That's pretty damn cool, man. That's pretty damn cool.
So,
You know all the superstars.
well, I don't know all the superstars, but I'm chipping away at the list slowly. It's kind of cool. I mean, I have to be, I have to say that very thankful for what Wing Chun has given me in terms of opportunities in my life. I mean, certainly if it were not for, Sifu Leung Ting's extreme, going out there and promoting Wing Chun in the 70s and building a huge empire in Europe, which, spawned the castle that I went to. And had they not done these things, and I wouldn't have been able to learn it the way I did, and I wouldn't have all these opportunities. I mean, every time I'm hanging out in Hong Kong and I meet Lo Mong from Five Deadly Venoms, or I meet this guy, that guy, whatever, I mean, I have Wing Chun to thank for that. Wing Chun has given me so many opportunities in my life, and it's funny because it's not even like a person. It's this cultural thing. It's very difficult to describe it, but I'm extremely thankful for what Wing Chun has given me in my life.
That's awesome. And it's given you probably more than you even realize. I mean, it's given you substance. It's given you your confidence. It's given you you've gotten confidence to do things, I'm sure, as the direct result of your training.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know for me, like I've stepped up to do things where I know I wasn't sure about, but I know I got the confidence from doing what I do, whether it's Jeet Kune Do or Wing Chun. And I owe a lot to, when I think about like myself with Steve Golden, there was, I remember the time it hit me. I was doing Chi Sao with Steve Golden, and I was getting hit. And I remember taking a step back and later on thinking to myself, I'm doing Chi Sao with a guy who did Chi Sao with Bruce Lee.
That's right. It's like the 2 degrees of separation type thing.
What I mean? Like, think about it. Like, that's kind of nuts. I'm doing Chi Sao with a guy who did Chi Sao with Bruce Lee.
Right.
Who did Chi Sao with Yip Man. Like,
yes.
like, that's pretty damn cool, And the fact that he's an incredibly nice guy and all that other stuff as just an aside. Just the fact that, I mean, Bruce Lee, who arguably could be, the most popular martial arts actor of all time, up there with Jackie Chan and whoever. Like, I'm doing Chi Sao with a guy who did Chi Sao with him, and that just that always struck me as odd,
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, well, it's kind of funny, like you said about Mark, somebody who did Chi Sao with one of the most famous. I mean, well, Bruce Lee's for sure the most famous kung fu movie star ever. But it also reminds me of something that Bay Logan said. When we did a presentation at the Museum of the Moving Image 2 years ago. He goes, when it comes to films in Hong Kong, it's kind of like the Beatles. With music, you have the time before the Beatles and the time after the Beatles. And when it comes to kung fu films in Hong Kong, you have the time before Bruce Lee, and you have the time after Bruce Lee.
Right, true.
And I just thought that 100% absolutely correct, because he changed so much. It's really, really unbelievable. And speaking of that kind of brings us to tonight's topic, which is actually about the famous IP Man films, which have drawn a lot of attention to our martial art. They've brought a lot of new students and new blood into various Wing Chun schools throughout the world, and they've also helped to elevate the status and name of Wing Chun in the general martial arts scene. And
you talk about the documentary starring Donnie Yen, right?
Yes, I'm talking about that 3-part documentary, soon to be 4-part documentary, chronicling every brutal detail in the life of Grandmaster Yip Man. So, we thought we would maybe just have a more lighthearted discussion tonight about, kind of about these films, their impact on the Wing Chun scene, and kind of, how these things fit into the scope of what we do, which is hopefully somewhat realistic. And these films are certainly definitely on the fictional side. So, should be interesting to discuss that. Now, have you seen all the Yip Man, I should say IP Man movies?
I have not. I have seen...
Which ones have you seen? Did you see the first one?
I saw the first one, and I saw the second one. I did not see the one with Mike Tyson.
Okay. Not missing much.
Well, and then, you know what? I think that's why I didn't see it. There's so much good stuff on TV, and when I have TV time, every time I say, oh, I'm going to watch this one with Mike Tyson, people pops into my head, oh, people always say it sucked. And
Yes.
You know, or it's not as good as the first one.
Right.
And
Sure.
And I always think, you know what? I'll watch this instead. You know, I'll watch.
Did you see Yip Man: The Final Fight?
Which one is that?
That one is the one that stars Anthony Wong, and
he has the hat. The one that has the one where it. Yes, I did see that one.
Oh, because also in Grandmasters, Tony Leung plays Yip Man, and he wears a hat too. So I don't want to get the.
Which one? Which one are you talking? Which one are you talking about?
Yip Man: Final Fight is basically has Anthony Wong, and well, it's kind of hard to differentiate. It basically starts with him coming to Hong Kong at the very beginning and starting out. And
yep, I saw that one.
Yeah, and that one, in my opinion, is actually the best of all of them.
That was actually a very good movie. That was a very good movie. Yes.
And I think the reason why Yip Man: The Final Fight is, and I'm not the only one who thinks that. Even my good friend Rick Myers, who's a Hong Kong film expert as well, he also believes that Yip Man: Final Fight is kind of the best one of the series because it's the best written. It's not the best as an action movie. I mean, certainly if you want to say which is the best action movie, Yip Man is definitely Yip Man 1. I think there's nothing more hard-hitting than Yip Man 1. I mean, when he takes on the 10 karate black belts, I mean, that scene is, like, brutal, right?
Yeah, right. That was awesome.
As unrealistic as it is, but it was a pretty amazing fight scene, and Sammo Hung's choreography is amazing. But I think in terms of the story, which is something that the Hong Kong filmmakers don't always invest a lot of time in, Yip Man: Final Fight has the best story, and it also happens to be the most accurate of all of the Yip Man films for whatever that is worth in terms of holding true to his story. What do you think about, I mean, obviously when they make films, they need to make money. So the films need to be entertaining.
Right.
But of course, some purists, might want a story that's also somewhat accurate. So what do you feel when they take creative license with somebody who really existed? For example, like in Dragon, the Bruce Lee story was kind of the same thing. I mean, does that bother you? Do you just say, okay, well, it's entertainment, that's fine?
It bothers me when they portray it as something that it's not. So if they would have said a fictionalized version of Bruce Lee's life, I have no problem with it. Make the demons, make them fly, make them do whatever the fuck you want. But if you portray it as an accurate portrayal of his life, then at least try and stay somewhat real. The Bruce Lee, the Dragon was, although a fun movie to watch, was ridiculous when you compare it to Bruce Lee's timeline. There was so many inaccuracies and flat out lies that were, it was beyond belief. I thought Jason Scott Lee did well in that movie. I think that,
as good as he can do. I mean, he's an actor who's reading a script, and I mean, other people are telling him what to do. And
well, you know what? Yeah. Actually, now he eventually went on to receive rank from Jerry Petit.
That's right. I remember reading about that in the magazine.
Yeah, he, but still an actor. That Jeet Kune Do is not his first craft. It's acting is his first craft. And so I think he did really well. And I thought the movie was fun to watch, but the whole story was just complete utter bullshit.
Sure. Yeah,
and it was just fantasy, and that bothered me a little bit. I would have liked to see more of an accurate representation of Bruce Lee.
Sure.
Because his life was exciting as it is.
Right. I think that's kind of the disappointing thing, both with Yip Man and with the various portrayals of Bruce Lee, is in the example of Bruce Lee. I mean, Bruce Lee's real life story is unbelievably compelling. Right. When you consider, like, by the time he came to the States at 18, he had already been a movie star in Hong Kong. He had already learned Wing Chun. He had already, gone on the wrong side of the tracks. He had already done all sorts of things. Like, by the time he was 18, that most people don't accomplish in their entire lifetime. Then he comes to the States as a foreigner and starts teaching and develops. It becomes a star in a country that doesn't even accept Asian actors. I mean, like, right. it's and in the landscape of the 60s, it's really unbelievable. And yet they have to create these kind of bullshit stories, like him breaking his back, like Wong Jack-man punching, kicking him in the back or something like that.
And him writing the Tao of Jeet Kune Do in his bed. It's just like...
Right.
Just such utter bullshit. And then the whole fight scene at the end with while filming that movie with it's just ridiculous. It was
just... Exactly. Yeah, and I think that, while certainly, Hollywood, the job of these films is to make money.
Right.
And certainly... you can't really fault them for taking some creative license and things like that. And I think as martial artists and as purists, I think we always have to kind of understand that. I think probably, I would imagine comic book people have the same problem. Like people who are really super hardcore into the Avengers or Iron Man or whatever. Like they probably look at a bunch of stuff and go like, wait, that doesn't jibe with the comic book. That doesn't make sense. This is totally wrong. But someone like me, like I don't follow comic books. I watched the movie The Avengers and I think it's great. So like kind of your level of appreciation, I think also depends on your level of commitment to that particular thing. And I think when you have people who are really hardcore into Wing Chun and JKD or whatever, any kind of portrayal of Bruce Lee or Yip Man or whatever is already going to be very hypercritical. Now, I say that, but even that statement is not entirely true. There are a bunch of Wing Chun people that every time a Yip Man movie comes out, they're like, oh my God, yes, Yip Man 8, whatever, it's the most amazing thing. Oh my God, gotta win, showing all these clips and stuff. And they think like, it's like they have almost no critical faculties, and just the fact that there's another IP Man movie, they go crazy. In fact, there's even a school, I think out on the West Coast, that uses the Donnie Yen Yip Man like silhouette as the logo for his Wing Chun school. And then I just go like,
that's ridiculous.
First of all, I mean, like, I don't know
again,
how many.
It's all about the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't know the average person that's not into. I mean, look, I also have a kung fu business, right? If you already know what Wing Chun is and you know what IP Man is, I don't think you need to use Donnie Yen.
Right.
And if you don't know that stuff, you're not going to recognize Donnie Yen's image. Now, for me, my issue is that you purport to teach real Wing Chun, and you have an image of an actor playing our grandmaster as the logo for your school, and that just seems kind of, I don't know. It just seems. I don't know. It just seems fake, for lack of a better term. And I mean, it's not my school, it's not my association or whatever. I don't really care, but I just find that that's also a strange byproduct. Is like for everyone that's like you or me, like kind of not satisfied with these films or whatever, there are a bunch of so-called people in our art that think that just the fact that there's a film is the greatest thing in the world, and they can make Yip Man 8 and Donnie Yen is fighting, Jim Carrey or whatever as a Charlie Footmaster, and they're going to go like, oh my God, this is so amazing. You know what I mean? And so,
well, I think so many of them see it as a marketing, even if they won't admit it. It's free advertising for them. You know what I mean? They know that the Ip Man movie comes out, and they know that they're going to have a whole bunch of people come in and sign up for lessons that they're never going to come back. It's like there's gyms that their business model is based on people signing up and never coming back. Mm-hmm. I once had a gym owner tell me, and this was a regular fitness type gym as opposed to a martial arts school, that he's in the business of signing up new members and praying 3/4 of them never come back. He said the day that all of his members show up, he's fucked because he doesn't have enough equipment for 1/8 of them.
Right, and the fire department will shut you down.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when these martial arts school owners see another Bruce Lee movie come out or another Yip Man movie come out, it's all about the marketing. I mean, look at Black Belt magazine again, an absolutely great magazine. But I think once or twice a year when they run out of stories, they run Bruce Lee on the cover with the secret kicks of Bruce Lee or some other fucking bullshit.
Sure.
I mean, and it's just like, why? Because the average martial arts guy says, oh, Bruce Lee's on the cover, and he picks up the magazine and he buys it.
Right.
And it's marketing 101. It's like one day you're gonna hang up a picture of me on your front door. I know it. Why? Why? It's fucking marketing, babe. Yeah,
and I think what's also interesting is the types of creative licenses that they've taken with the story are very, very interesting. So, for example, Yip Man 1. Okay, so Yip Man 1, which is arguably the best of the trilogy, it has one glaring historical inaccuracy in it.
And the Japanese?
And that is the Japanese. and certainly Grandmaster Yip Man had some issues with the Japanese, and I've even read in David Peterson's book that when Yip Man was a little bit younger, he actually went to Japan, I think with his brother or something like that, who had a business and had some issues in Japan and had to leave or whatever. So, I mean, certainly, they weren't happy about Japan. I mean, that's also based on China's history with Japan. But the reason why Yip Man left China had nothing to do with the Japanese, because the Japanese occupation, that was in the early 40s. Yip Man left China in 1949. Okay, and the reason he left was because of the communist Chinese,
Right.
not because of the Japanese. But the problem is you can't put that in a film because the Chinese censor boards won't allow you to put something like that because they consider it subversive, and the film will not get distribution in China, which is their main market.
Right.
So, you know, what do you think about those kind of things that kind of, you know, when
Again,
politics then interferes?
You know, again, I get it. It's absolutely a bottom line decision, and I understand why they did it. But they cannot. They have to put. They should, in my opinion, put a disclaimer saying that this is a fictionalized story of Grandmaster Yip Man. I had heard. I mean, and I don't know how true it is. You would know much better than I. That more than a few stories, even from Yip Man 1, were really stories of. I'm gonna fuck up the name. I mean, don't disrespect bias. Yun Kei-san. Yun.
Yun Kei-san, yeah.
Yun Kei-san. I had heard, at least someone told me, that a few of the stories from the Ip Man series are actually stories that happen with Yun Kei-san. And again, I don't know how true it is, but that would bother me on two levels. That would bother me, one, for the descendants of that lineage,
Right.
and two, Yip Man himself lived an interesting life.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If you're going to make if you're going to make a story of you're going to make the Sean Madigan life story, well, you got to jazz it up with a bunch of bullshit, because I haven't done that much. But, you know, if you're going to make a story of people that have done shit, go into greater detail about how they did it.
Right.
You can make that exciting.
Sure.
You don't need to invent it. Now, again, the thing with the Japanese, I really feel like they had to do that because of the marketing. They wouldn't be able to market the movie in Japan, in China.
Right. And that's their biggest market for these films is China.
Right. So I get that.
Right. Which actually explains Yip Man 2. You said you saw Yip Man 2, right?
Yes, I did.
Now, for me, Yip Man 2 is the biggest pile of dog shit ever in any of the canonical Yip Man films. And I say that, and so many people love that movie, and I just go, that movie is effing terrible. It's poorly written. It's poorly acted. The fight scenes took a tremendous downgrade when you compare them to the fight scenes in the first film.
Right.
And there's a very solid reason for that. So when they made the first Yip Man movie, so you know that you may not know the names of different Hong Kong directors, but there's a very famous director named Wong Kar-wai. Now, Wong Kar-wai is kind of Hong Kong's resident art house director, and he makes a lot of very interesting, very artsy films. But Wong Kar-wai is actually known for taking a very long time for making movies.
Okay.
So he might take like a couple years to do one movie because he's not like the other Hong Kong directors who just pump movies out. I mean, most Hong Kong films are pumped out very quickly, which you can usually tell when you watch them. Right,
sure.
But Wong Kar-wai likes to put a lot of thought into his films, and they're well written and they're beautifully shot. If you've ever seen any of them, I'd recommend the film Happy Together or 2046, In the Mood for Love. Those are like really amazing movies, and he never made a martial arts movie before, but he wanted to, like in the early 2000s, make a movie about Yip Man, and he decided to do, and it was all in the press and everything like that, but he got bogged down in other projects, and eventually Donnie Yen and Sammo Hung decided that they were going to make the Yip Man movie, and they made theirs in 2008, and Wong Kar-wai had still not made his, although he announced that he was going to make it. Right. So what ended up happening is Wong Kar-wai got really pissed because Donnie and Sammo took his title. The title that they took for the film was Yattoi Zhongxi, which means the kind of like the Grandmaster or Grandmaster of a generation, right? And that was the original title of the Donnie Yen film. But then Wong Kar-wai got pissed off and threatened to sue them, and then they changed the title to Yip Man. And later, when Wong Kar-wai finished his film, which is known as The Grandmasters, he retained that title. Hey, Sean, can you give me a moment? I need to go buzz somebody in. Hold on a second.
Sure.
All right, hold on.
And I'm not going to cut this out of the podcast because I want this to show how unprepared Alex was for this podcast. He's going to come back and say, "Oh, by the way, we're going to cut this out," and I'm going to say, "You know what? No, I'm going to tell him I'm going to do it, but I'm not actually going to." Now, what are you?
You talking about editing that out?
I was just telling the folks that I'm going to tell you I'm going to edit that out, but I'm not.
You never do.
I just as a punishment to you.
Punishment to me
for not being prepared.
What do you mean not prepared?
Listen, you made me leave in the fucking phone call rant I threw that day.
That's funny. Yeah, so basically, Sammo and Donnie decided to finally make that Yip Man movie, and forget Wong Kar-wai. If he's not going to make the movie, they were going to do it, and they made it as a labor of love because Donnie Yen is a huge Bruce Lee fan, and Bruce Lee was always difficult. And part of the reasons why there's so many Yip Man movies now is because Bruce Lee, as you know, it's very he is the hot topic even now that people want to make movies and stuff about. The problem is securing the legal rights from the Lee estate because they're extremely litigious, and they will apparently Shannon Lee will only sign off on something if it's absolutely effing terrible, and then she'll sign off on it. But if people want to do like legit projects about her father or whatever that accurately represent him or whatever, she will say no, but she will sign on for some kind of nonsense biopic like she just did or whatever. So anyway, so that's the reason why they said, okay, well, if we can't do Bruce Lee, then we'll do Bruce Lee's teacher, because they don't have all the copyright issues.
Right,
and that's part of the reason why they've done that. And also, if you know anything about Hong Kong films, the Grand Poobah, the guy that they've made the most films about, was a master named Wong Fei Hong. Wong Fei Hong was like the most famous Hung Gar master. And there are like hundreds of films made about Wong Fei Hong. So that Wong Fei Hong lemon has kind of been squeezed dry over the last 40 years. And so they've kind of done a bunch of other people, Lam Sai Wing and Fong Sai Yuk and all these other guys, but they're always kind of looking for, where's another Chinese hero? And it just so happened that Yip Man, it took them a while before they got around to Yip Man, and Yip Man was a huge hit. So when the Donnie Yen Sammo Hung Yip Man 1 came out and it was a huge hit, they were surprised because they had no idea it was going to be a hit. And that was the reason that they decided to make the second movie relatively quickly. And so if you imagine, Yip Man 1 was a labor of love. They wrote it, they choreographed it, they put heart and soul into it. And Yip Man 2 was made solely to cash out on the mainland Chinese market because they knew that they had a hit on their hands. And I don't mean to disparage the Chinese, but I'm about to anyway because I've been watching these films forever. Mainland Chinese audiences are not always as sophisticated as even Hong Kong audiences when it comes to watching film. I'm not saying about in any other pursuit, okay? We will keep it strictly to what their tastes are in film. And while certainly in America there's a formula to having a big hit, you know what I mean? I mean, Hollywood is pumping out formulaic films all the time. But the China formula is very, very simple, especially when it comes to martial arts. If you basically just make a Chinese hero, and at some point he defeats a Westerner, all right, and rises from the ashes and makes the Chinese people proud, any variation of that film will be a hit in China for the next 80 years for sure. Just like we were talking about on last week's podcast, how they have all these sham fights between Chinese martial artists and these fake Japanese martial artists on Chinese TV. Well, that same exact formula, if you put it in film, is also a hit. And when you look at Yip Man 2, that's what they had with the Western fighter. His character was Twister in that film, and he and that actor, and his name escapes me at this moment. He actually passed away about a year or two ago. It's really, really unfortunate. Yip Man comes to Hong Kong, and then there's this big evil Westerner who beats up all the Chinese guys, and then Yip Man steps up and goes into the ring and beats this guy up, and that was a formula film for mainland China. The first one wasn't. It just happened to be a hit in China because it was a good movie. The second one was them just cashing in on their chips. And the third one was exactly the same. What they did in the third one is known in the entertainment industry as stunt casting. And that was Mike Tyson.
Right. All
right, because Mike Tyson, oddly enough, has a huge following in China. They love him. They think he's great. So putting him in there was kind of a no-brainer. And he basically just has a cameo role in a couple scenes in there, and that's it. He's not even actually the main villain in that film, although it always seems that way from the trailers. But yeah, that was it. I mean, so 2 and 3 were basically just made solely to cash out on the mainland Chinese audience, and that's where you have this massive degradation in terms of story and resources and stuff. And also the problem with Yip Man 3 is Donnie's salary was so high because he had become such a big star that a majority of the budget actually goes to Donnie's salary, and then they obviously have to cut corners elsewhere in terms of production values and things like that, and script. I mean, if you understand Cantonese, there's a
well, I don't. But go ahead.
There's a line like "Fatsang Messi." Fatsang means like what happened, right? Fatsang is like a thing, and Messi like what, and the phrase "what happened," Fatsang Messi, like literally you hear it like 80 times in Ip Man 3, and it's like, who the hell wrote this shit? You know what I mean? Like, because especially as a student of Cantonese, I'm like, I'm trying to hear Cantonese so I can improve my Cantonese, right. And I'm like, I keep hearing the same phrase. Oh, right. That's just really shitty dialogue writing. And the funny thing is, the bad Wing Chun guy in Ip Man 3, who's played by Max Zhao, who now they're going to have a spin-off movie based just on him. His Wing Chun looked way better than Donnie Yen's in Ip Man 3. Like, he actually looked like he was doing more orthodox Ip Man Wing Chun than Donnie Yen's character was in Ip Man 3. It was embarrassing. And the knife fight, like the Pacham Do and the long pole at the end, was just atrocious. Had very little to do with Wing Chun, and it didn't even look that spectacular. So
here's a question for you.
Yes.
And I'll did you ever look at any of these Kung Fu movies, Ip Man or any of the other ones? Sit there and just say to yourself, hey, you know what? I never thought of that. That's just in the choreography of the fight scene. Sit there and say, you know, I never thought of it, and of that part in the form being used that way.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
I will own up to that. I have, and it happened in the IP movie Ip Man 1. I remember there was the scene. I'm not even gonna say which one because people are gonna shit on me enough as it is for this. And I remember seeing a movement that he did from Buji, which at the time I was in the midst of learning. So of course my eye picked up on it because like I'm literally learning Buji as I'm watching this movie, right? And I said, "Holy shit! I never even thought like that's a way you could use that in a fight." And I was like, you know, and I literally started like thinking about it, and I'm saying to myself, "Well, I can't tell anybody ever that I came up with this shit from watching the Ip Man movie, right?" but you know what? It's the truth. I'm not gonna lie. There was a movement in one of the Ip Man movies, and it was Ip Man 1, where he does something from Buji, and I just said to myself, "Shit, I never thought of that."
Yeah, well, you never know. I mean, they do have some like Wing Chun consultants. Like I don't quite remember who the consultant was for the first one. I know that Ip Man's son Yip Chun had something to do, but I think he was more a consultant in terms of like
the
talking
story.
About. Yeah, also like, you know, what his father was like and giving those kind of notes and things like that. I forget who the Wing Chun consultant was on the first one, but on the second one it was Cliff Aoyang, who's a Wong Chun Leung guy. Yeah, they've had a bunch of different ones. So I mean, you have like legit Wing Chun guys doing consulting on those things. Now, of course, Sammo Hung is basically he's got the final say because Sammo Hung is the choreographer, so he's going to look at that stuff and see what will actually look good on camera.
Right.
So he could yay or nay whatever the hell the Wing Chun, like the Wing Chun consultants say, no, you know, the Buji should be done this way or the Bongsa should be done this way, and Sammo might go, yeah, but that looks like shit on camera, so it then becomes this, so then, you know, that's why, you know, those things are obviously optimized for show effect or whatever. You know that Ip Man, that Donnie Yen has actually signed to do Ip Man 4, right? You heard the news, right?
I did not hear that, no.
Yeah, so he signed on, which is very ominous because the number 4, do you know the number 4 in Cantonese?
Yes.
All right, what is it?
Oh, Mother of Jesus. It's the same word for death, I know that.
Well, it's not the same word for death. It sounds
like
this.
Right?
It
sounds like the word.
Say is the number 4. So the difference between 4 and death is, so 4 is a level tone. So you say like say, and to die is say. It's a rising tone, right? But even though they're two different tones, but the pronunciation is close enough that essentially the number 4 is a bad luck number in Chinese.
Right.
So the number 4 is their version of, you know, like 13 is for us,
yeah.
Right? So it's kind of strange to actually say Ip Man, say Ip Man 4, because it almost sounds like Ip Man dies. Now, interestingly enough, Ip Man 3 finishes at about 1962, according to what the subtitles say at the end of that film. So that means that they still have about 10 years more of story to tell in Yip Man. So whether they're going to do that all in Yip Man 4 or they're also going to have 5, I mean, there's still essentially 10 more years left of the story. So it's interesting because the film is also called Yip Man Say, whether that is also kind of some kind of homophone for Yip Man passing away and dying, and whether this is going to be kind of the end there. I heard that they have signed Jackie Chan for this one. So the stunt casting is going to be Jackie Chan. Is Jackie Chan going to be a bad guy? I don't think he's a very convincing bad guy.
Right.
So I'm very curious what Jackie Chan's role is going to be in that, if those reports are even true. Should be quite interesting. I think that they also had a Yip Man TV series on TVB. Like a long form, like a soap opera format, like a 24 or 36 one or whatever. I mean, these things are all great for business or whatever.
Right.
What's kind of nice about them is they bring people in the door, and once they're in the door, then you can tell them what the real story is, and then they go like, "Oh, okay, so this didn't happen, this happened, so on and so forth." And so definitely that allows us to have an audience that we wouldn't otherwise have. So I'm definitely grateful for those films and looking forward to them making more of them in the future.
Right. Sure.
Hey, Sean, I got to get the door again.
You're effing killing me.
Sorry.
This guy is killing me. It's amazing. It's like with the money, Alex is basically rich. He doesn't tell you this, but he drives around in a Lamborghini in New York City, which is ridiculous. He lives in a mansion. He can't afford a doorman. It's really scary. But again, he's going to ask me to delete this, and I'm not going to. I'm going to delete this. Of course I'll delete this, Alex.
Wait.
Oh my goodness gracious.
You know what it is? Normally, our audience probably doesn't know, we normally record these podcasts on Friday. And on Friday, I generally don't have any classes here besides maybe some private students upstairs or a fight class. We're recording this week's podcast on a Thursday, which is like one of the main nights we have here at City Wing Chun. I have 2 floors, and the main class is upstairs. Normally, my wife, Carol, she's here at the front desk, but both of our kids are 6 years home. So I'm kind of manning the front, but I also need to do this podcast. So all of those people who are buzzing in, those are actually all people who are late for class because the class started like an hour ago. And then they're like annoyingly buzzing, and it's like, you're almost an hour late. You know what I mean? So for me, it's kind of like...
Give me their names.
I will give you their names because I have in front of me, for those people who watch us on the video here, in front of me, I have a surveillance system of my entire school. So I see the classes upstairs. I see, I have like the entire thing on lockdown. So I can see these people coming up, and I am taking notes, and they're going to have to answer to Sean at some point.
Absolutely. And I even know when. At your party.
That's right, at the banquet, yes.
At the banquet. I'm going to be fucking kicking ass and taking names.
So actually, that kind of segues into something, if you'll allow me to be a bit, to promote something a little bit.
No, God forbid I let Alex not promote something. Are you kidding me? They say the most dangerous place on this earth is between Alex and a camera.
That's not entirely true, just mostly true. So as I mentioned on previous podcasts, this year is actually the 15-year anniversary of City Wing Chun, of my school. And I'm having my yearly, week-long training camp where people come from all over the place to come and train with me. But I'm also going to be having a special banquet. That banquet is going to be on June 24th. It's going to be in New York City, in Chinatown. And it's going to go from like 6 to 10 or whatever. And it's a Chinese-style banquet, so it's like a 12-course Chinese meal that comes out. And we're going to have some demonstrations. Some of my good friends in the martial arts are going to demonstrate some other styles. There might be some Wing Chun demonstrations, things like that. I'll give some awards to some of my long-term students. It's basically going to be a party, and we want people to come. And but of course, since we have a lot of people coming, we have a lot of guests and Kung Fu friends and family and so on. If anybody wants to come to the banquet, they're more than welcome to. We actually have a link for it on our on my online shop, which is wt-athletics.com. And if you're interested in coming to the banquet, you're going to be in New York on June 24th on a in the evening. We'd love to have you come. You do need to register in advance. There's a banquet ticket fee for that. All of that stuff's online. Sean is going to be there. So, for our fans who are in the New York area, if you want to meet the dudes, that's definitely one of the times you guys can see both of us together at an event that just also happens to be kind of a big moment for my school. And so would love to see you guys there. You just need to make sure you're registered. Don't show up at the door and be like, I want to come. Because since it's a banquet, we need to tell them like a week in advance how many tables we need. So please don't show up the day of and think you're going to make it in there, or I will have Sean personally pooch you out of there.
That's why he has me coming.
That's right, because you're security. You're going to be
security.
You're going to be at the door with one of your weapons from your childhood, some chukka-sticks or something.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I have a Karasugama.
Karasugama.
The chain on the bottom with the weight.
Right, yeah, exactly. Swinging it ominously like this. Do you have a banquet ticket? And when they say no, you just crack them on. Did you ever see that movie UHF with Weird Al Yankovic?
No.
You never saw that, but that movie's a classic. It's so ridiculous. So they had a bunch of skits in there, and he did a Conan the Barbarian skit, but it was like it was Conan the Librarian, and I just remembered as the funniest scene, like because it's like a guy who looks like Conan the Barbarian with like the big hatchet. And somebody goes up to him and he asks him where a certain book is. And then Conan, the librarian, just turns and he says, "Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?" And then chops him in half with the axe. So great. You could basically be that guy, like, "Don't you have a banquet ticket?" "No, I thought I could just show up," and then shoom before they're even done. You have decapitated them or whatever. That'd be so great.
So do you have my Cantonese lesson for the week?
I do have your Cantonese lesson for the week. By the way, how did what you learned last week fare for you? Did you use the Phi D law?
I absolutely did. So I worked the other day. We had a problem with the computer, and the gentleman who works on the computers, he's from Hong Kong. He's a great kid, and he came. And now he's used to me now saying "Yamogaucho." So he comes walking out, and I look at him like "Yamogaucho," and he's just like, and he's like literally said like, "Fuck that shit, leave me alone," like, you know.
And for the audience who doesn't know, "Yamogaucho" is kind of like what the hell or what's going on or whatever, you know. So
I'm waiting, and I literally text Alex. This is at like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, if you're up, double check me on this. How do you say this again?
That's right. Yeah, I remember. I got that text super. Lucky
so
I got
after about 10 minutes into him fixing the computer, I look at him. I go, "David," and he goes, "What?" I said, "Phi D la," like that. Phi D la,
which just means hurry the hell up.
And he turns around to me and he looks at me and he goes, "Never do that again." And so he turns around to one of the guys I work with. He said he basically, without actually cursing, told me to hurry the fuck up.
Yeah, because Chinese is very contextual. Also, it's contextual in the way you use it. Right. So if you say like "Aitira," like if you say it like that, you definitely.
I really try to get that stink face going and everything. Yes. I was like "Aitira."
Yes.
He was cracking up about it. He's like wherever you're learning this shit, stop. He's like.
So, actually, I thought what I would teach you tonight, it's not specifically a Wing Chun Kun Ku, but
it's fine,
it's a very famous Chinese saying. Actually, an average, person in Hong Kong would know this even if they didn't know any Kung Fu.
Oh, cool.
And it has kind of a double meaning. For martial artists, it's got a meaning that kind of hits home. And for the average person, it kind of means something akin to beginner's luck, So,
okay.
And basically it says, like a random punch from an ordinary man can kill an experienced Kung Fu master. So it's kind of like you say, like if some new plays a game of checker or chess with somebody who's really good and they beat them the first time, and It's just beginner's luck. You know what I mean? The same way an ordinary man could throw some wild, untrained punch and kill the aged Kung Fu master.
Right.
Now, from a martial arts perspective, I mean, we all know that this is true for people who train very traditional martial arts for a very long time. They might be so steeped in certain routines and movements and methods that, some random person who doesn't know anything throws an awkward punch and suddenly they get punched in the face, right? So we know that in a very literal way, the saying actually is totally legit, that, somebody with no training, could totally throw a random crazy punch that could even stop somebody who's like professional.
Yeah, sure.
and this is also why, and not even just about Chinese kung fu, but there have also been issues with like I remember on German TV a long time ago, there was a female boxer, a professional boxer in Germany, and she was like amazing. And there was a talk show host who said who was totally untrained, and he said that he could totally beat her in a boxing fight, right? And so they staged it. Well, I mean, they actually had it live on the show that he was going to box like one round with a professional female boxer, and he was just like a normal German dude who just has a talk show in Germany, right?
Right.
Now, she was a lot smaller than him, and of course, you know, she was able to move around. She was able to hit him, but he actually hit her a bunch of times, and it ended up not looking that great for her, even though she was a professional. I mean, she definitely won. She definitely won the round, but you could see that somebody with no training doesn't necessarily mean that person is easy to fight, you know? So that's kind of what the saying is, and then of course it means that you know, a kind of if you beat the old kung fu master, you might have beginner's luck. So are you ready for it?
I am much ready for this.
Okay. So first I'll say it all together, and then I'll give you the individual pieces. So it's Mang Kun Da Sei Lo Si Fu. All right. So the elements there, mang means like wild or crazy. Kun, as you know, kun, as you know, means fist.
Man kun.
So it's literally mang kun means like a wild fist or a wild punch, because you have to understand in Cantonese the term kun can literally mean fist, but it can also mean punch. It depends on the context, right? And then da sei. Now we just talked about sei a moment ago. Sei meaning kill, right?
Right.
And you know da means to hit, like
da sei shifu.
If you say da sei means to kill with a hit, all right? And then lo means old, all right? And then sifu, like master.
I've heard of that before.
You've heard that before, so you say Mang Kun Da Sei Lo Sifu.
Mang Kun Da Sei Lo Sifu.
Hey, not bad, not bad. Now, a little work on the tones. Wild is man, like very low, like you're talking from your stomach. Man. And then kun, like fist, is also a low-level tone. It's kun.
Man.
No, not kun. It's kun. A lot, like kind of falling softly on a pillow. Kun. Man kun, right? And then da is like rising, like you hit da. All right, and then to die, sei is also rising, so it's da sei, right? And then old is low, like level tone. All right, and then sifu, which is a word that we all say a lot. Most Westerners don't pronounce it correctly. It's actually a high level tone, and then a mid level tone. So it's sifu. All right, and some people even say the fu character with a rising tone. So some people go high level, high rising. So they go sifu, because you don't want to say like sifu, right? Because sifu doesn't make any sense. If you say si means like time, but si means teacher. So you go sifu. So so the tone is very important, because if you say it in the wrong tone, it makes. I mean, when you say it in English, you say, "Oh, sifu Mike, sifu Bill." Right. But you say it to a Chinese and you say sifu, like sifu, like that. They don't know what the hell you're saying. It has to be sifu.
Right. Nice.
Sifu,
okay.
Right. So the whole thing. Man Kun Da Sei Lo Sifu.
Man Kun Da Sei Lo Sifu.
Wow. And then now if you say that to your IT guy, he will like, hey, you know what would be totally awesome? Is that if your IT guy is there trying to fix something.
And he gets it right.
No. And he can't get, and like you go up there and you hit the reset button and you fix it. And then you say to him, Man Kun Da Sei Lo Sifu.
Well, no, I'll just wait for him to fix it. And then say,
because when you fix it, it's like you are the beginner and you have just outshone the master, because he's the IT guy, right? So you say, sorry, and then you walk away and sit back down. Like that would totally. You know what's funny? Initially, this was to teach you Wing Chun phrases, but it turns out this is just stuff to say to your IT guy to piss him off.
It's awesome. And you know, quite frankly, if you work in New York City, it's to piss off any IT person, because we all work. They all come from Hong Kong. So
that's right.
Text me this phonetically so I can put it in my notes.
We'll do. I'll make a screenshot from my flashcards. I'll send it to you.
No, text it to me. The phonetic part, not the Chinese characters. The phonetic part.
It has the phonetic part in there, buddy. Take it easy.
Dude, you know what? At your banquet, don't make me kick the shit out of you in front of your fucking students. I'm telling you now.
Do you think I'm going to send you Chinese characters and be like, hey, there it is. Good luck with that, asshole. I mean, I might do that just to piss you off, but no. You will have the phonetics there. Don't worry about it.
Oh, good. Because I'll put that right in my notes.
Right. Awesome.
Oh,
Well,
there you go.
Well, hey, man, that was a lot of fun today. Just want to remind everybody to like us on Facebook if you haven't done so already. Follow us on Twitter, Dudes of Kung Fu. We had a little bit of action on Twitter this week. A bunch of people were saying they really want to hear a Dudes of Kung Fu Cantonese podcast. So it was very funny. Like, normally most of our action tends to be on Facebook, but like Twitter was like really picking up this week. Like a bunch of people were on there. So if you're on Twitter, we got Dudes of Kung Fu on Twitter. You can also follow me on Twitter, Sifu Alex Richter, aka Kung Fu Genius. We're also on Facebook. I'm on Facebook too, Sifu Alex Richter, my public page. Please go ahead and follow that. And as always, when the podcast comes out, share it, like it, let other people know about it, and write reviews for us on iTunes and Android to get the word out there. We'd much appreciate it. And we look forward to it. We got one more episode for this season.
You forgot to mention one thing there, buddy.
What did I forget to mention?
We have a T-shirt shop now.
Oh, that's right. We do have a T-shirt shop now where you can get all sorts of sexy Dudes of Kung Fu merchandise. But not just T-shirts, also like cups and things like that too, right?
Exactly right. So it's dudesofkungfu.spreadshirt.com.
Nice.
Dudes of Kung Fu. I'm going to put I'll post a link again to our Facebook page. But it's dudesofkungfu.spreadshirt.com. And by next season, Alex and I will be wearing them. Because I'm ordering mine today, actually.
Beautiful.
And
awesome.
and you know what? They have tons of sales on all the time. They have site sales, 20% off, 10% off. You know, so check it out. Order some stuff, and show you're one of the dudes, man. Awesome.
And again, if you guys want to come to the banquet on June 24th from 6 to 10 in Chinatown, go ahead and go to wt-athletics.com. That's the online shop for City Wing Chun. Buy a banquet ticket there, and we'd love to see you. You can meet the dudes. And then if you bring some of those shirts that you got at dudesofkungfu.spreadshirt.com, we will sign them for you if you bring a big enough marker.
All right, folks.
Guys. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.